Welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell. This week for episode 42, I have Mollie Franke and Sara Lively with me from the Veterans Yoga Project. We will be sharing our stories of working with this amazing organization and the impact that we have personally witnessed it making in the lives of our fellow veterans. This is a very important episode, folks, near and dear to my heart. I really hope you enjoy. So welcome to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell. This week for episode 42, I have Mollie Franke and Sara Lively with me from Veterans Yoga Project. We will be sharing our stories of working with this amazing organization and the impact that we have personally witnessed it making in the lives of our fellow veterans. A little bit about our guests before we get started. Mollie retired from the U.S. Army after serving 21 years in various logistics, leadership, and training roles. She has a bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech in urban affairs and a master's of urban planning from the University of Louisville. After her career in the military, Mollie's family had the opportunity to live abroad for 4 years in Heidelberg, Germany. Been there, love that place. While living in Germany, Mollie was involved in support to the Syrian Refugee community, teaching a modified yoga. Mollie joined Veterans Yoga Project in 2018 as the volunteer coordinator. Mollie received her 200-hour yoga teaching certification and mindful resilience training in 2019. She is most proud of her supportive family. And then we have Sara. So Sara, upon retiring from the U.S. Air Force after 20 plus years of honorable service, felt called to pursue her yoga teacher certification with the hopes of bringing yoga to fellow military veterans and their families. Though she has been practicing yoga for over 20 years, teacher training set her on a path of deeper exploration and self-discovery, as many teacher trainings do. She is an ERYT 500 registered yoga teacher with Yoga Alliance and holds multiple specialty certifications to include trauma-sensitive yoga. Her educational background includes a bachelor's in biology, a graduate certificate in lifestyle medicine, and a master's in health and wellness. She is currently working towards a PhD in exercise science with an emphasis in biomechanics and kinesiology. She is the proud owner of a small yoga studio located in Bellevue, Nebraska, the home of U.S. Strategic Command and Offutt Air Force Base. And she's a member of the Yoga Health Foundation. So, ladies, welcome. Holy crap, do we have an educated bunch here?
Well, that was a mouthful just out the door.
Right? Like, yeah. By the way, we're very awesome in case you didn't know. Exactly.
We did that.
Oh, right? Oh my God, that's awesome. Well, I'm so excited to have you guys here. You know, we've all been working with VYP for quite a bit of time, but we've never really had a chance to interact much. So this is going to be really fun for me. Like, I'm really excited to get to know you guys better and to be able to share our stories with the world. I'm just kidding. The whole world won't watch, I promise. A handful of people. So anyways, I thought we'd get started with actually talking just a little bit about like the history of VYP. And so I know kind of the basics. Please fill in, add in where I leave some stuff out. But really, Veterans Yoga Project started it was 2011, right?
Ooh, don't quote me on the year, but that sounds right.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was 2011. And it was Dr. Dan Libby, who was working for the VA as a clinical psychologist. And
student too.
What was that?
He's still a postgraduate student.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that he started teaching yoga to veterans inpatient at the VA and found that he was getting better results when it came to their healing through his yoga classes than he was in his clinical psychology therapy sessions. And so out of that kind of birthed Veterans Yoga Project, right? And he built the Mindful Resilience training program to train others to work with veterans and to teach yoga to veterans in a way that really honors kind of our special needs, I guess you could say. And, you know, it sounds silly, but like I went to a yoga class not too long ago and she started playing a singing bowl during Savasana. And it sounded like an air raid alarm. Like I'm not even kidding you. it like was triggering me so hard. Like I had to like get up and just be like, can you just stop playing that? And she was like, oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. And I talked to her about it afterwards because it was a veterans class. And I was like, just so you know, like, that sounds like an alarm. And she was like, oh my God, I never thought about it, you know? And like, so it's the little things. And that's what I always loved about VYP is it's those little things that we pay attention to and teach others so they can teach to veterans more easily. But yeah, and so he built mindfulness resilience training and started sharing that class, flying all over the country to do it because he taught everywhere. And I know that they did retreats because that was my first experience. And then it just continued to grow and expand over the years. And now it's almost 2025. So 14 years now, VYP has been going strong and creating huge, amazing change and success for not only our country, but now it's working internationally with veterans as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, because we're out in Germany now. We're in the UK now, working with allied forces, first responders. So the message is being received and getting out to those who need it. So yes, hugely grateful for all the work that Dr. Dan Libby kicked off for us and the continued work that our team and our family is doing.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Cool. Okay. So there's a little history on VYP, also known as Veterans Yoga Project. And I'm just going to say VYP very quickly moving forward. Speaking of Veterans Yoga Project for anyone listening, that's like, what is VIP or VYP? And this is live. So if anyone has comments or questions, feel free to type them in. And if we don't get to them during the show, I'll make sure to answer them afterwards. Okay. And we appreciate all of you being with us tonight. And for those of you watching in the future, the recorded show, we appreciate you watching after the fact as well. And would appreciate even more a donation to veteransyogaproject.org. So feel free to check that out. And I might plug that multiple times. So anyways, I figured if we could all just take a minute and kind of talk about our own journey and experience of connecting with Veterans Yoga Project, because so many of the volunteers that work for Veterans Yoga Project are veterans. And it was one of the things that I thought was so interesting right off the bat, because it really changes the way the organization operates. I think when you're running a nonprofit and the majority of the people working for the nonprofit are your population, it gives like such a different flavor or flair to the work that's being done, because we know what we need. I mean, we would hope anyway. We try to know what we need. But I really loved how VYP honored our voices. So if one of you would like to go first, you can, or I can go first. It's completely up to you. You let me know what you want.
I'll start. That's fine.
Awesome. Okay, let's go, Sara.
So I clearly need to update my bio. Thank you for highlighting that. I've been practicing yoga for a lot longer, on and off in various capacities, the hot yoga, the yin yoga, the like exercise yoga, you name it, whatever means I could get to it during deployments, home station. And it's always looked and felt different, but there's always been one piece that resonated with me and that I still carry to this day. And it was the connection to self. And so when I made the transition to retire from the military, I was on that self-discovery, that self-exploration, and I thought there has to be more here. Where can I take this? If this feels good and right in my body, it has to feel that way for other people too, not just veterans, but of course my niche was going to be my fellow military members. I had worked even in deployed locations, offered yoga classes before, and we all, it was a great break from the monotony of what was going on in the conflicts apart from home. And so then I got deeper into the whole chronic pain and inflammation and the whole medical side of things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do teacher training, did that. And that just opened up more questions for me. And I said, well, if I'm going to connect with this population, how do I connect with this population? Yes, I live down the road from Offutt Air Force Base. That's an easy answer, but it wasn't the answer. And as it would happen when I went online, poof, there was VYP. And I flew down to Texas, made the connection with Dan Libby. And instantaneously, I knew that this is where I needed to be. I wasn't sure exactly what my role would be with the organization, but I knew this was the space I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took the training, as veterans do, right? We're purpose driven, and I was able to redefine what my purpose was now post military life. And so I took that and jumped into opening the studio, as you mentioned already, and started offering classes. It wasn't always rainbows and puppy dogs and pretty and doing that, and that's fine. But the core of what I've been doing all along is connecting with veterans. And as we say continuously at VOIP, is empowering people to really tune in to themselves and be the voice, listen to themselves, build that intuition again, and reinforce all the things that I knew had connected me already through yoga. So it's taken me through my entire education journey and just more questions. And as the questions get answered, more questions, right? So,
yeah. One of the things that I heard Dan say probably multiple times, because I co-taught a few classes with him, but he used to say that we're creating the environment for healing, right? We're not healing people, we're empowering them to heal themselves. And he compared it to a cast, right? The cast.
Still use that same.
Do you? Awesome. Because it was like so impactful for me, because I was like, oh my God. And I use it in classes I teach too, because it makes so much sense. Like, it's such a beautiful metaphor, because that's exactly what VOIP is all about, is empowering, right? Because veterans aren't these weak little creatures laying around needing to be fixed or healed, because one, they're not broken. And then two, like, we need to just be told how. Like, how do we do it? Give me the tools, give me the resources, give me the support, and let me take action in my life. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to VOIP too. It's just amazing the way they do that.
And not to get too far off track for my story, but to your point, right? I said, as I got into this practice, I started to feel more in contact with what I would say Sara was, like my essence, my self, my sense of being, right? Because I joined the military at 17, went right in. And as we know, with the prefrontal cortex and all the sciencey stuff that we talk about in our MRTs and everything, right? I didn't really have a true sense of self. And then coming out of that military era, for me, it was like, okay, I still don't understand who I am or what do I want to be when I get older. And so yoga, though, was always at the core of that. And like every time I got on the mat or I did my breath practices, everything made sense. I know it sounds so woo-woo and yo-yo and whatever, but
hey, if the woo-woo works.
Yeah, I just like I tell everyone,
if the woo-woo works.
It's fine. Yeah. But then the other element to that too is I was also in a space as a spouse to a combat veteran. So we're both combat veterans navigating our new purpose, our new chapter, parenting. And it was the day that my husband turned around and said to me, now you need to fix your shit, sister. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm out here holding space for everybody else, right? And he was like, no, you need to do the work too. And I was like, but I am. He's like, no, get on your mat, do the work. And I was like, oh. So that's when all the pieces finally fell in. And I was like, all right, here we go. So yeah, so I've served in different roles and capacities through VYP, teaching classes, guiding MRTs, now serving as the director of programs, which really fulfills me because I love to build curriculum and I love to talk the sciencey stuff. I love to share stories. And so that said, that's where I'm currently sitting. And I'm just excited every day to talk with people like Mollie, who's out there doing great things. We have an amazing team. I say a family because I really do feel like we're all family. Okay. Just as we had the same thing while we were in the military, my military members are my family, still just the same. So anyway.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thanks, Sara. I appreciate you sharing your story. Yeah. That's awesome.
So, I came to yoga for me was post-military. I was working with the Army Reserves. I had a young son. I was having back pain. I just need to figure out a different way. My normal PT wasn't working for me anymore. So I had to figure out a different way. I was in my graduate program and one of the women researchers with me, she's like, let's do some yoga. She put me in downward dog and I felt so much relief. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I kind of came into yoga as we do a lot through the physical side, right? And started practicing. And I was leaving the military at this time and retiring. And I'm like, what do I do now? And my husband's career started to take off. So I became the trailing spouse. And yoga was the thing through the transitions of raising the kids while he's off developing his career and doing what he's doing. And we ended up moving back to Germany because my husband and I, we actually met in the military in Germany. And I'm in Heidelberg, kind of kids are in school, and I'm like doing my yoga. And I just started Googling veterans yoga. Where can I find things? And honestly, on all of my initial, not all, a lot of the initial interviews I have with our volunteers who want to come and work with us, they're like, I found you on Google. Yay, Google works. But, so I found the organization, and I think I filled out the just a newsletter application, and somehow I got connected to Simone.
Because she's in Germany, Bavaria.
Right. But she was actually 6.5 hours away from me in Germany. And I was still new, learning yoga. I found a great teacher there in Heidelberg that I could work with. And the opportunity through that studio came up to work with the Syrian refugees. And so that was just an amazing experience, but also a service-oriented experience, right? So I could put my yoga and I just kept following the website for VYP as I was living an expat life over there. And when we moved back to Chicago, I was like, okay, I'm doing it. My 200 hours. I completed that with Yoga View in Chicago. And it was an amazing studio that just opened my eyes to more of the meditation side, more of the breath side, not so much the physical side of yoga. And I reached back out to Christian Allaire and I was like, I'm here now. What can I do? And he's like, oh, you've got logistics. We're going to put you in personnel. We're going to have you do the volunteer engagement. I was like, Danielle Forchetti was leaving at that time. I think she was one of the new right at the start. And I kind of haven't looked back because I got the 200 hour, I got the MRT, and I'm like, I'm going to go teach. But then I also got into the volunteer engagement side, and to be that cheerleader and that front facing person for the volunteers that we do bring on and onboard. The stories are amazing. I mean, the people we have and how they come in and want to work for us and serve again, or even just support it keeps me going. It's what I love to do. And because we're such a virtual organization, you know, I sitting here in Dallas, Texas, but I've helped VYP in Illinois. I talked to the VA. I got a class started at the Vet Center in Chicago, and then COVID happened. Moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Got something going there. So it's like, there is something for everybody here in VYP to help, to do, to teach, to relate. And then the online studio. I mean, we are truly trying to bring our 5 tools to the community, and it's amazing. I don't know.
It is. I mean, it is. It absolutely is. I mean, that's why I've stuck with it for so long, you know. I don't have anywhere near as active as a role as I've had in the past, but VYP is, I'm going to get teary, but like near and dear to my heart, 100%.
It is. And like Sara said, it is. And like Sara said, we're a family, right? So sometimes family needs space and
yeah.
Yes.
And I guess I kind of sit in a role where I can watch. I see those YTT graduates. They come in and they're so gung-ho and they're so ready to do something. But then yoga gets a hold of them, right? And then they got to do.
And then they're on their path.
And so sometimes they have, and they're always like, but I'm here to support. And I was like, you are, but you'll come back to us because you know where that foundation is. And that's what the space is all about. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps as I say it.
I know, 'cause this is meaningful work. I mean, that's the thing. Brianna knows where I live. She knows my skill set, and she knows that I would do anything for VYP. So, and I think earlier this year we had a conversation. I was like, if you need anything, just let me know. Like, I'm always here for you guys. You just let me know. But yeah,
I will say that too. Like, it's so refreshing to be in an organization where most people have served, and even those who haven't served still are in that supportive role, as Mollie's highlighted. But we're all here with the intention to support one another. But then when somebody actually verbalizes that to you, I hear quite frequently from many of our team members, "How can I support you today?" I don't know too many other organizations that your boss walks into your office and says, "How can I support you today?" Right. Yet alone give you the space to have the breath to be like, you know what, my shit's falling apart right now. I need space.
Well, and that was one of the things that was so weird for me working with VYP is I have a very corporate heavy background, and I worked in tech, high pressure, boom, 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 go, go, go. And when I started working with VYP, I was like, this is taking forever. Like, I would get so frustrated. And Dan would be like, just breathe, Adrian. Or Brianna would be like, I feel like we need to take a breath. Or she'd just do the thing where she goes, and I'd be like, oh my God, fine. But it's so helpful.
Still happens.
It's so true.
People that come in, they're like, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to get there. Like, at the risk of sounding all like woman, like super hippie or whatever, but it is refreshing.
It's gonna get there. It's gonna happen. Yeah. And I mean, it really helped teach me how to exist with work in a more healthy way, because it will get done. It's gonna happen. If we're all here, we're all on board, we're all engaged, it's gonna happen. May not happen tomorrow, may not happen when we exactly want it to. But I think that's what's different about VYP versus a lot of organizations is like they really truly live and breathe their values. Like, I mean, VYP lives what they teach, you know, and I think that's really impactful and really important. So my story, I started the VYP in 2015. So I was in the Coast Guard for 8 years. And when I got out, didn't even consider myself a veteran, had nothing to do with veterans or military. I was pretty pissed off when I left, I'm not going to lie, and kind of out. And when I started grad school, I had taken like a hot yoga class a couple of times and was like, eh. And that was all the yoga that I had done. Okay. And so I started grad school and I had been out of the Coast Guard for, oh gosh, 7 years, I think at that point. So I had been out of the military for a while. And when I was in grad school, we had to do a project based on a photograph that resonated with us. And the photograph I found was in a project called Faces of War. And it showed, do you know the project I'm talking about? It showed.
No, the title alone is bone chilling.
It's incredible. It's incredible. I wish I could remember the artist's name. If you Googled it, it will come right up. But it's basically, they took pictures of military members before they went to war and after. Oh. And it's insane how it shifted. So that was like this little project we did. And it pulled me right back into the world of the military and serving veterans. Because I was like, oh my God, there's all of this terrible stuff happening. And I want to help, right? I'm a leaky human, by the way. And we're talking about stuff that matters so much to me. So this is just going to happen. Yeah. So my first fieldwork project, my first year of grad school, we had to go out into the world in whatever area we were working in and work on site and do a little mini research project. So I looked and Googled and tried to talk to so many different veterans organizations that would have nothing to do with me. Wounded Warriors literally like said, no thanks, lady. We don't need you. And I was like, I was like, but I'm a combat veteran. Like I'm a disabled combat veteran. Like you're supposed to help me. And like, help me by helping you. Yes, no. Yeah, they were like not having it. And I had emailed Veterans Yoga Project. Dan called, and I'll never forget, because again, this was before I was anywhere near yoga. I was totally corporate minded. I was actually teaching electronics at a nuclear power plant at the time. Okay. And he's like, well, let me meditate on it and I'll get back to you. And I was like, what the fuck was what? And I was like, okay. And so like the next day he called me back and he was like, you know what? Let's do it. He's like, we have a retreat, because this is back when we used to do retreats. We have a retreat at Feathered Pipe Ranch up in Montana. Why don't you come up there and why don't you attend the retreat? Instead of like doing it just as like a student, why don't you actually attend, because you're a veteran? And I was like, I don't need healing. Like, I'm fine. Like, whatever. So I totally did need that. So that was my first experience really with like yoga, was through VYP. And in that, I think it was a week, in that retreat, I met so many other veterans that were really struggling. Two of which straight up told me that week at Feathered Pipe Ranch changed their mind when it came to killing themselves. Like, it totally blew my mind. Like, I'll never forget it, because I remember just being like, holy shit, yoga did that, right? Like yoga, because one of them, the reason he was so close to it was he hadn't been able to like get a full night's sleep in months and months and months because of his chronic pain. And he was able to sleep a full night through after being at the ranch and doing yoga every day for like 4 or 5 days, right? And it just completely blew my mind. And so like at the end of that, I went to Dan and I was like, I will help you guys do whatever you need. I was like, this is my skill set. This is what I can do. Because I had been a trainer. I'd been teaching for a very long time, building accredited programs. I was like, let me help you. And he was like, okay. Like, that was kind of the beginning of it. And I wasn't a yoga teacher. I had no plan to become a yoga teacher. I was just starting grad school with no plan to become a psychologist or a therapist, right? But I just wanted to help. And so I worked on revising the MRT training program. Dan and I ended up working together to build the compassion fatigue program, helped put together some of the educational programming that went on at the bigger retreats, right? The group retreats for the staff and all of that. And I've loved every single minute of working with VYP, even when I was frustrated, because it was teaching me a beautiful new way to show up in the world. And I think for me, that is really what yoga has always been about, is finding a new way to show up in the world. And like, the one thing that I always loved about VYP that I use in so many of my classes now, because I don't teach yoga, but I teach somatic movement mindfulness, right? Is all you have to do is show up and be on your mat. Yep. And I tell them, I'm like, I don't care if you move. You could just lay there. You could sit there. You can do whatever you want. Just show up. Just show up and be with us. Just spend this time just being with yourself. And like, I really remember the emphasis with that in the VYP classes I attended, which made going to other classes difficult because I'd just be like, some days I don't want to do stuff. And then the teacher would be like, this is what we're doing. And I'd be like, I do what I want. But anyways, so that's my story. That's how I got into VYP. And so I've been a huge fan, supporter, ambassador. Apparently I was an ambassador before I even knew what an ambassador was, since 2015. And every year I do my best to fundraise for you guys and help in whatever way I possibly can, because I truly believe in the work that VYP does. Like it is literally life-saving, and it's incredible to me that something so simple can create such a large impact.
Yeah. We just heard that last week. And how many? We had at least 3 veterans walk up to our table and say, yoga saved my life. And
it's wild.
It is wild. And to me, the most powerful thing was my first class I taught. I had a 70-year-old veteran at this vet center down south side of Chicago, and he hadn't taken his shoes off in years. Like, he's like, no. I said, well, I said, I won't make you take your socks off, but just press your feet into the ground. Just press your, and he's like, I can feel my feet again. And I mean, it's just that connection, right? That simple connection that, to me, I was hooked on wanting to try to be a better teacher, but also just to continue to bring VYP along as an organization. And
so, Mollie, you just reminded me of that. So we were recently just at MCon in Las Vegas last week, a few of us, and it reminded me again of what you just said, with some people saying yoga saved my life. And I've kind of been sitting with this thought that it's not yoga that saved anybody's life, right? It has always been within ourselves, but we've been so far removed from whatever that is. Some people call it an essence. Some people call it my core, right? And it's, right, the true sense of the word yoga, right? It's yoking us. It's pulling us back to that. So it is a path to get back to that. And I know what they're trying to say when they say yoga saved my life, right? We're not selling cures. We say that in every MRT. We're not selling a cure. We're not saying I can solve all your issues and world peace. Wouldn't that be fantastic if we could? But one breath, right? To tune in and listen to my thoughts and my body, and to say it's okay to not be okay. Like the next breath just came. Oh, and the next breath just came.
And I'm still okay, right?
Yeah, because, and you're absolutely right. It is a path, because, I mean, for me, and I've noticed this in a lot of fellow veterans as well, we come out of the military with a really unhealthy relationship to our bodies. And I mean, even like to this day, I'm in physical therapy for all kinds of fun things. And she'll say, do this. And I'm like, okay, it hurts. Should I keep doing it? She'll go, well, no, if it hurts, stop. And I'm like, okay. And she, like, they're always surprised, like, you would keep doing that. I'm like, well, yeah, because you told me to. And even this long of being out, I still have those moments. But working with yoga and spending time cultivating a more healthy relationship at least has given me the moment to ask, should I keep doing this if it hurts? Versus just assuming that I should push through, because that's what I was taught to do for so long. And so I really love the fact that yoga gives us that opportunity to reconnect with what, like you're saying, like our essence, right? And cultivating that relationship with the physical body, but really like our whole selves. Like, because when we leave the military, we're often a little lost. We've gone from a super communal environment, or a community, right? Collective community, to an individualistic society. And now we're completely on our own. And we got to figure it all out. But our body is figuring it out too. Like, our nervous system is trying to figure out, how do I live without being surrounded by all these people that help me co-regulate all the time? Like, and it's all unconscious, you know? So I love the fact that yoga creates that path and the opportunity to be in silence, sometimes silent, be with yourself, and reconnect in a way that's true to who you are, and safely, right? Like, contained and safe. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so as a mom, I even have that conversation with my 26-year-old who's now serving in the Navy, and right, trying to look back at what I wish I would have known earlier in my military career. What can I pass on to her to maybe ease some of those challenges that she may be up against, whether they're leadership or mission driven or whatever it may be.
Right.
But sometimes it's just like, hey, be okay with not being okay. So that's usually the first rule that we guide to. And then be okay with being alone and being with yourself. So take yourself to dinner, right? We could talk about this, like, take yourself to dinner, be with your thoughts, journal, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it is breath, or one of our 5 tools that we teach at VYP, right? So breath, gratitude, move, rest, and breathe. So any one of those tools could be the fit for somebody, or maybe it's all of those things together is the fit for somebody that gives that momentary break from all the other stuff that we've been jammed into from day one at 17, 18 years old for most people that join the military, right? It's go, 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 mission, mission, mission. And that's great. We get it once we're on the other side. There's a reason why that machine works the way it works. But then what do you do when you get out? Like, how do you transition? What does that look like? How do you come back to your essence? So that's the word I keep landing on right now. It just works for me. How do you come back to self? What does that look like? How does that feel? So...
Right. And what's the story your brain's telling you? But what's your thumb saying, right? Can you make those connections?
So speaking of what VYP teaches, so I know that there is like, for sure, one phrase that's like the big one for VYP, and there's the 5 tools. So would you guys be willing to share those with us?
So the phrase I don't know if I'm
acronym.
Are you talking about space?
Yeah. Okay. So yes. So that's the key thing that we teach at VYP is that there's an external component and an internal component to the word space, right? And in keeping in true military fashion, everything has to be an acronym. Thanks, Dan. Even though he doesn't hail from the military community, he gets it. But acronyms, we live by them. And so when we talk about MRT, mindful resilience for trauma recovery, what we are talking about is creating space or holding space and sharing a practice. And that space is a safety component, right? Being able to move, breathe in a capacity that is safe for you and reestablishing and defining what that looks and feels like. Then there's the predictable piece, right? I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing. And then you, as you've said already, get to decide whether you want to do it, you need to do it, and how you're going to do it. And then we have, and the controlled environment. So maybe it's a little more of a Navy acronym. It's not everything. I'm Air Force, so we usually use every letter.
Right.
That controlled environment is like, can I minimize the distractions that pull me away from being present in my mind, body, and spirit, right? So maybe I can minimize the door opening and closing, which might pull my attention. And again, we're, as facilitators or guides in the practice, we're holding the external space, right? The container, the cast, as you alluded to, so that the individual in their practice can make connection and reestablish, empower themselves to make the connection to the internal space. Right. And what does that look and feel like for that person? And it's not a one size fits all. So as we know, trauma knows no boundaries. It does not discriminate. And nobody's walking in the sign that says, I have trauma, right? Like treat me different or treat me better or whatever. And so to that point, what I have actually found in my teachings is I now teach all of my classes through that lens. It's not just a veterans class. It's not just a first responders class, because everybody's up against something. And it's not always PTS, right? As we say in MRT, not every veteran has post-traumatic stress, and not everybody with post-traumatic stress is combat veteran. But I think we can all agree, even here in this forum, that stress is real and stress is around us at all time. And there's good and there's bad, but nobody ever really teaches you how to cope and manage and be with those situations.
Well, and not to mention, like you said, from when I learned that in the MRT, I now apply it in every single class I teach, no matter what type of class it is, because yes, it's great for people who have trauma, but also it helps bring down the threat level in the individual's brain and nervous system, right? So even if they have no trauma, creating space helps them feel more comfortable and relaxed, which encourages a better learning environment and a learning experience, right? And it's also just really freaking respectful. Like, as you said, the teacher is controlling the external environment so the student can be present with their internal environment. And I really think as a teacher, explaining these things, like, because I go through them, right, especially with predictability and all of that, and I explain, like, this is the space we're in, this door opens this way and this goes this way, blah 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 blah, and I tell them, I'm telling you all of this so that you know that I've thought about this ahead of time and that I'm here to help create a good container. And I think it helps them realize that you've thought about them, and that what we're going into matters.
I will even admit that I use this as a parenting skill now.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Same thing.
My kids will come in, they're like, and I'm like, okay, all right, somebody's dysregulated. How can I hold space for them?
Yeah, for sure.
Kids having a life experience. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and through the training, what's been amazing to me is that, you can walk into any VYP class around the United States and you're going to get the same thing. Maybe, there'll be little nuances that might be different, but it's the same. And that's pretty amazing and powerful with the way we teach and what we recognize needs to be in the room when you're teaching to veterans, caregivers, or family members. I'm just in awe of that because, Sara taught me in Las Vegas. Josh Maloney, another one of our members, ran a class for us, and Brianna. It's like it's all the same. We all strive really hard to keep that predictability. Is powerful to let people find their own space, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons that happens is because in the MRT and the yoga teacher training, I'm assuming I haven't been through the whole thing. VYP doesn't just tell you what to do, but they explain the science behind why. So it's not just space, do these things in your class. It's space because this is how the brain works. This is how the central nervous system works. This is how what you are doing for that person is going to impact them and their experience.
Right.
And I think when you can understand why you're doing what you're doing at that level, it really helps encourage that behavior, right? Because you're like, oh, I know how to affect change in this space.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm laughing because as I hear you saying that, the biggest feedback I get from our MRTs is, I wish you guys would just give us, a little more concrete, like black and white, what to do, what not to do. And I'm like,
am I just a science nerd? Is that it?
Okay. That's okay. And then eventually you see them come back to teach with us, and then you know that it clicked because there's been some time to process. So like, I see what you did there. I'm now making considerations. And at the end of the day, you're still teaching like to your style. And again, going back to that, you have to be okay with not being okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? Like, and that's okay.
And I think too, the MRT it's quick. Like, I mean, those weekends, it's like what, 2.5 or 3 days of training?
It's 17.5 hours over 2.5 days. So it's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's quick. The manual is thick. And so I think what's important too, like if you're going into the training, because it's an amazing training for anyone listening or watching, if you want to teach yoga to vets or just work with them, because chiropractors go to this, nurses, all kinds of holistic healers. It's really awesome at helping you learn how to work with veterans better. That class is like an introduction. It's like, here's all the material you need. And then, like you said, as you go forward and you start practicing it, then more things start to click. I would even recommend like reviewing the training materials, multiple times as you go through. And then what I do before I always teach is I always write down a specific outline and curriculum for each individual class that pulls the elements from things that I've learned into it for the group that I'm working with, And so I think, like you said, eventually it clicks and they're like, oh, this is why. But we also, we have a culture that is like quick fix, push the button, blah, 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 right? Like, give me the 1, 2, 3 steps of how to go. So,
and I appreciate that though, because the people that are coming to VYP are people who want to help, right? I mean, I came to VYP like, I want to help fix, right? Fix my fellow veterans and my husband, right? Somebody right here next to me, my partner. And then Dan, slams you with, nobody's broken, nothing needs to be fixed. And you're like, what the? Like, what?
But like including me? Like me?
Yeah, right? And then you're like, oh, shit.
You're like, I don't know. I'm pretty jacked up. I'm just saying.
And then you get that science lesson and, nobody's walking out of there a neuroscientist. Nobody's walking out a certified clinical psychologist or anything. But the pieces start to fit and you start to make sense. I mean, we just had, without sharing names, right, for privacy purposes, but I had a spouse come through our training and she's in the middle of a divorce from a Marine. They've been together 30 years. She's been with him his entire career. And we shared a tear at the end and she said, had I known now, or then what I know now about PTS and trauma and stress and the co-regulation pieces and all the stuff that we talk about, I probably would not be getting divorced from my Marine. And so when she shared that, she said, but what I am going to do with that information is maybe we can have a stronger friendship and move forward and co-parent and do all these other things. So she was still able to absorb that information. And yeah, we shared a tear because it's sad. Nobody wants to break up a family. But then you start to have that empathy and that compassion for those, your fellow mankind, right? Your sisters and brothers around you. You're like, who doesn't need some more compassion?
Right.
So
everybody. Yeah.
right.
So, okay. So we've talked about the MRT a few times. So let's talk about the specifics of what you guys offer. So mindful resilience training for trauma is the MRTT, right?
MRT.
Known as the MRT. Yeah.
Sure.
And this is a class, like we've said, 17 and a half hours, 2.5 days, or 2 days, 2.5 days.
So we have two different options. You can take it in a 2.5 hour or 2.5 day option. So a weekend, like a Friday through Sunday, which is a lot of information over a short period of time. We do most of our stuff online, although we have occasional in person, which is nice. But again, post COVID, everybody's shifting away from that brick and mortar life. So then we have a couple where we do it over a few days, so 4 or 5 days. So it's a little more digestible, which is great for the work, like people who still have careers and families and can't fit in a full weekend of training. So it's all the same material. It's just broken up a little slightly different.
Nice.
Maybe more palatable for some people. And then we roll right into what was known as mindful resilience for compassion fatigue.
Okay, hang on, pause before we go into that. So still with the MRT, all of these options are listed on the website, correct?
Right.
Okay, so if you're interested in going to the MRT, take a look at the website. You can register online there. There's emails for both of these lovely ladies there. If you have questions about volunteering, it would be Mollie. But the programs, it would be Sara, correct? And do you guys still offer scholarships for your programs for veterans?
We do, and they're varying levels and denominations. So we just encourage everybody to apply, but that also extends to caregivers and community members too, depending on what our funding looks like. So again, always want to encourage everybody to apply. And then as we shift through each quarter, we review accordingly and then issue out from there.
Awesome. I just like to make sure and say that because I know some people look at the amount and the price and they're like, oh, I can never do this. VYP is amazing when it comes to scholarships, which is another reason I fundraise so hard for you guys. You can keep doing that. So don't be dissuaded. If you want to do the MRT, you go online, write them, talk to them. You never know what can happen. Magic. Okay.
Or you can do that.
We'll figure out the financing part. Just show the interest and we'll figure out the financing part.
There you go. Perfect. Okay. Now the other program, my baby.
Yeah, so we have mindful resilience for compassion fatigue. Now that course has now shifted and is evolving into what we're calling cultivating compassion. Since society has caught on to this whole compassion fatigue, what are we doing for caregivers? Again, post-COVID, we're looking to support people who support people, right? So that class is a little bit longer. It's 5 weeks. So it's evolved a little bit from
I know,
you remember, but now it's a 5-week course. You meet once a week. There's some paced modules. Mollie's just recently went through our beta test of our newest edition. So we'll be launching that in 2025. But that course is meant for the caregiver themselves, those people who are out there taking the time to fill their cup so that they can continue to do their mission and help and support those around them. So you have a small cohort, you meet for 5 weeks together once a week. There's little homework assignments, if you will, little exercises and some self-paced modules. What did I miss on that, Mollie? Since you just came from that course.
Well, no, that's pretty self-paced modules. And then you gather once a week and you discuss what you've just learned and get ready for the next week. And you go through the exercises together and then you have the week to prepare. And, both courses have just opened my eyes to just how we navigate the world and being able to add more compassion or look at where I'm at, right? And do that self-reflection. Because sometimes, especially if you're if you're a caregiver or a giving soul, you're just going to push through, right? And not realize when your cup's empty. And I think that's what's pretty amazing about the cultivating compassion. It's really kind of making all of us stop and think, wait, what is it that I'm not doing for myself? And that's something powerful these days too.
Yeah. And I also just want to be really clear for anyone listening or watching that this course is not for what you would think is like the traditional caregiver, just them, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just the person that stays home and takes care of their loved one. This is for anyone that is in a supportive role to somebody else. So nurses, doctors, therapists, chiropractors, wellness practitioners,
elementary teachers,
brother, teachers, like, I mean, literally everyone, I mean, honestly, everyone could use this course. It's a beautiful course. Yeah. And I know it's evolved since me and Dan originally built it into something even more beautiful, because that's how things go. But I just know the bones of it are, they're amazing. They're amazing. So if you are in a space where you're feeling a little tired, a little burnt out, or if you aren't in that space yet, but you care for others, maybe you're just an empath and it's not even your like daily job, this is a great course to consider, especially before you reach a place of burnout, right?
And I was going to say, I would argue that most people that come to this class are kind of teetering on that. Am I burnt out? What is this I'm experiencing? You can't really put it into words. And so then you come to the course and you get a little more clarity on what is it I'm feeling and experiencing. And other people are experiencing the same thing, right? There's that I'm not alone feeling anymore, which can be so isolating when we get into those situations. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I know the self-paced modules, the weekly chats and all of that, but the 5 tools that VYP teaches are in this as well. So it's not just talky, but there's breathing, there's movement. Tell us about the 5 tools, ladies.
You're right there. Breathing, mindful movement, guided rest, meditation, and gratitude.
Yep, absolutely. And so it's not your standard like compassion fatigue course. This is one that really is about, like Sara was saying, reconnecting to that inner essence and empowering yourself, right? And using your resources to become stronger so that you can continue being the amazing, compassionate person that you are in the world. So highly recommend. Again, you can register for it on the website, right?
Correct.
Yep. Correct. And again, if the price is scary, write them. You never know what could happen.
Let's have a conversation.
Right.
Or if you're a donor, I'll even say that to the donors. If this is something that you're looking to field and fund, right? We're also reaching out to organizations that want to do team events, right? So this knows no boundaries the same, right? We all know that we are humans having a human experience, and to be educated and to be supported in whatever environment that might be, professional, personal, again, speaks to that empowerment piece, right? If you can empower your family member, your team, I think at the end of the day, I think we would all agree that we're in a better place.
Yes, absolutely. The world needs more love.
Yes.
Yeah. I give it the Italian hands for that. Love. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we have the MRT, we have compassion fatigue. Those are the 2 programs you guys are running. You have the yoga teacher training program, which did you do 2 in 2024 or just 1?
Our aim is to do 2 a year because we've had such a high interest, especially amongst the veteran community and caregivers. So, right, veterans and their caregivers who are interested in doing this work and supporting their communities.
I mean, I'm hoping to be in next year. Just saying.
Yeah, we're hosting.
That's the goal. The goal is 2 next year for sure. Yeah. Yep.
So applications are open now. Don't quote me on the exact closing date, but we'll be starting the next cohort in January. Again, it's a virtual combination. We're going to meet virtually ever so often. You get your schedule, you get your books, you get your materials, all that support. You also have some self-paced things. So it is a mixed module learning environment. And then eventually we come together in person at the end to do some demonstrations, to meet and greet one another, and to support each other in person as well. And our locations for that change depending on the cohort. We've been at the Himalayan Institute. We've been at Feathered Pipe. We've got some other options for next year. So yeah, definitely.
So applications are open for that, for the January start right now.
They should, if they're not open right now, they will be opening any day now.
Okay.
So yes, you have to go to the website to find out exactly.
Awesome. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't want us to stop without talking about the online studio.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
please.
I'm just trying to be very clearly delineated.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So we got the MRT, we got compassion fatigue, or what are we, cultivating compassion?
Cultivating compassion, yes.
And then we have the yoga teacher training program and Mollie, the online studio, which has grown into something huge and fantastic.
It's amazing. It's a free online studio.
Free
For anybody. For anybody. You do not have to be a veteran. We're not checking DD-214s. We're not.
You know what I tell people when I tell them, because I tell everybody, go to this online studio. I lead them to your yoga. You need your recordings all the time. I say, if you're not a veteran, make a donation.
Well, yes, we would.
But they are free. But if you're not a veteran, make a donation.
Right. But, yes. And you can find those 5 tools in all shapes and forms. You can find power yoga, to guided rest. You can find meditation in mid-afternoon. You just need a lunch break. Just need to kind of check out for 20 minutes. You can come join us online. 7 days a week. There's classes that can fit anybody's time, and you can show up in your home. You can do it in your pajamas in your bed. You can do it. You can get all fancied and dressed and do it. Either way, it's accessible.
Yeah. We should note too that you have a live option, right? So you can to interact live with some people, which is nice for some. But if this, at the end of the day, if you're like, your schedule is completely out of this world and you're a night shift worker and you're like, I really want to do a practice, but what studio is open at midnight, right? We have the library. So you can still get to those recordings of those classes. So again, whatever duration of time you want to do, maybe you just have 5 minutes before you go night-night. You want to do a breath practice, great, look it up, get on there, and it's free. So there's over 5,000 classes that we're offering a year. Yeah, it's crazy. That's just the virtual stuff, not including the studios that we partner with, right?
And you know what else I really love too is on the website is the YouTube videos, the links you have to like different ways to sit in meditation, going through the different types of yoga gear or props, right? There's also chair yoga. So it's not even just regular like standing yoga. And then also like modifications, which I think is really important to just bring up because like I've torn my left shoulder 3 times. I have a hard time with certain positions, right? Right now, my hand is messed up. I have a hard time with certain positions. A lot of regular yoga classes, I struggle because the teacher just wouldn't get it. And that was another thing with VYP's classes that I really enjoyed is like learning all the different modifications. So I would say that's one thing that's probably a benefit about the live classes is VYP teachers are more open, I would think, to that kind of thing and like helping you find other ways to do different poses. So you're not like, you don't get stuck in this, oh, I can't do it type of thing.
Right.
Because you can, it's crazy, but you can. There's so many different ways to do every pose.
Well, and I think you said at the beginning when we were first getting ready to pop on is like, even if you come online and you're just looking for community.
Yeah. Right.
You can turn your screen off. You can just listen to us. That's fine. That's what, depending on, you live in rural Nebraska or whatever, right? And you're just like, I need to hear another human's voice. Pop online. That's what it's for too. So you don't have to move your body. You don't have to do anything that we say. The one contract that most of our teachers agree to is we all agree to breathe.
Nice. Yes. Perfect. And there's research out there that shows even if you don't do the physical yoga postures, watching others do it, your body does respond as if you were. So it will still help your central nervous system, even if you just show up on your mat. Yep. And you don't do anything physical.
We had a veteran in a power yoga class say, I realized I wasn't ready for power yoga, but the voice of the teacher allowed me to connect to the energy in my body.
Nice.
So I stayed for the whole class.
That's perfect.
It happens.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, the hour flies, you guys. The hour flies. So we just hit an hour. So we've talked about the MRT, compassion fatigue, cultivating compassion. We've talked about the online studio. We've talked about the tools. We've talked about some of the videos available on the website. And now let's talk about the help that you guys need. Very, very important, because look at all this amazing stuff that Veterans Yoga Project is offering. And did you know the large majority of the people who work for VYP, they're volunteers. They don't get paid, which is like always blown my mind. But that's how much people care about Veterans Yoga Project. And that's also how you know that every dollar you donate really makes a difference and goes to the programs, goes to those scholarships, goes to supporting the organization, the video library, the online classes, blah, 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 right? So funding, and this is something I've done a long time for VYP because I'm not a yoga teacher, so I do what I can. But you guys have an Amazon Smile account, right?
We did. I think they shifted Amazon Smile. I'm not sure what that looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it changed on us. And
so there's simple ways to give. There's more complex ways to give. The simplest way, you can just go to the website, donate money, right? You can make monthly donations. You can make a one-time donation. You can also go to your boss. If you work for an organization or a corporation, believe it or not, they have funds set aside to donate, especially the larger organizations. And they often aren't really like sure who to give it to. They just have this money. I used to get $5,000 for VYP from my company every year because I just go in and be like, hey, can you donate some money? And the CEO would be like, sure, how much you want? And I was like, how about $5,000? And they were like, okay. And they would like write us a check. So you can ask your boss for stuff like that. And they're not going to get mad at you for asking for money for a nonprofit that helps veterans.
Well, and I might get some flack for this. And as much as we do need the funding to keep offering the free programs, it could be as simple as sharing on your social media or sharing with your neighbor too. Word of mouth is powerful. And so just sharing with another veteran, hey, did you hear about this? Your clinicians that you're with, maybe they can implement it in their practice, right? So everything that we're doing, a lot of clinicians are already using in their different therapies. This is complementary to what they're already doing. So word of mouth goes a long way too. And then for Mollie, if you have a skill set or you just have time, hit Mollie up. We've got plenty of work that needs to be done. So we'll take volunteers too.
Yeah. And know that as a volunteer, they will respect you and your time. Like, again, that was one of the things that blew me away about working with the organization. So you don't have to be afraid about them like latching on and trying to use you for everything in the whole wide world.
It's interesting because we train and we teach burnout. And so I'm like super focused on making sure my volunteers don't burn out. That doesn't mean that doesn't happen, but we really try hard to make sure our program volunteers are bite-sized kind of stuff, that 3 to 5 hours a week. Anyone got that? Come on.
You know you do. Yeah. So money,
as we come up to Veterans Day, we've got Veterans Gratitude Week coming up. So once a year, make that happen.
So money, time. So things to give: money, time, right? Sharing, share the word, just share about even the programs, right? And then, as Sara just brought up, next week is Veterans Gratitude Week. So this is like your guys' huge push for fundraising. It happens every single year, the week of Veterans Day. I always teach some sort of class. I haven't registered mine yet. I'll be honest, because I haven't I know I asked everybody what they wanted and nobody said anything. And I'm like, what do you want me to teach? But I always teach something or make bracelets and sell them for money. I mean, I do all kinds of things to get VYP money. But next week is VGW, Veterans Gratitude Week. And there's teachers all over the world teaching donation-based classes, which is amazing. So there's a map on their website you can go to. You can find a class, go to a class, and when you pay for that class, the money goes to VYP, which is great. If you're a yoga teacher or any kind of teacher like me, and you want to host a class, You can register on their website. They will put you on that map so people can find you and find the class. And then you just donate the money from the class to VYP. So you get like promotions for doing it too, right? It's good for your business. And you get to help veterans and you get to help VYP. So what else about Veterans Gratitude Week or anything else you guys want to share?
I think we could talk for another few hours. I remind everybody that come one, come all. I mean, truly, we have people of all ages, all backgrounds, experiences, and it's just so refreshing to see us all working towards the same goal. It's just getting back to our essence, and it's just eliminating that isolating of like, I'm not the only one. We're all in this together as a human race. So it's just, that would be my plea to everybody is get out there, try it on. My husband will tell you he's not a touchy bendy, toey person. He'll meditate all day. That's fine, but stick with it too. So also come, if you try Mollie's class and you love her class, or you come try my meditation and you don't like it, keep working it to find the space that resonates with you. There's something or someone for you on our platform. I'll put my money where my mouth is on that one. So.
I would agree. I'm right there with you, Sara, because
All right. Well, ladies, so grateful for everything that you do in this world. Oh, I'm going to get choked up again. But I'm just so grateful for everyone at VYP and all the work that you guys do, because you know it. You make a difference in veterans' lives every single day. And not just theirs, but the world at large, right? Because veterans are just people too. And as we interact with everyone around us, you know, the healthier we are, the healthier our communities are. So the work you do is changing the world every single day. And I just really appreciate you guys.
Thank you for having us, right? It takes every single one of our efforts to make the move forward and continue that progress. So thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, it is time for us to say goodnight. So to everyone listening and watching, thank you so much for joining us. Check out veteransyogaproject.org. Support in whatever way you can, even if it's just checking them out and passing it along. And we hope you have a good night. Good week. Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Energetic Psyche, a podcast that live streams every week, Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll join us again in the future. Have a great week.